Welcome to a live episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, SCS Nation? Welcome to this special breaking news and very distressing and disturbing episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. We just got some news a very short time ago regarding the Ellen Greenberg case. As you may or may not know, Ellen Greenberg was an elementary school teacher in a very nice area of the Philadelphia suburbs called Manayunk. She was living there with her fiance, Sam Goldberg. This is back in 2011. And it was a snowy nor'easter night, not just flurries, but a very, snowy evening. Ellen stopped on her way back to fill up the car with gasoline, her own car. She was in the process of making a fruit salad. And that evening, she is discovered dead with 20 stab wounds, 10 to the front, 10 to the very back of her head, 10 to the back of her neck. An autopsy showed that 2 of the stab wounds were post-mortem, meaning they were done, inflicted after she was already medically dead, which is a little tough to do. Her then fiance, Sam Goldberg, calls 911, is asked to do CPR, and a while into this call, suddenly he discovers a knife that I believe is 4 inches in her chest, suddenly, as though you would not see that immediately. I am gutted right now, I'll be honest, because I spoke with Josh and Sandy. They gave me a little heads up. They actually messaged me yesterday during the Brian Kohberger press conference. And so I was doing that all day. Then I had the show, and then I couldn't reach Josh last night when I called him back. So I reached out this morning. He was on the golf course. He seemed himself a little bit confused about what was going on and didn't really have a handle. He said that he did speak with prosecutors, and he told me that his wife heard one thing, Sandy heard one thing, and he heard another. Well, Sandy heard that the Chester County DA, which is where this case now resides, that Sandy heard that they were going to put it in inactive status. Josh told me he heard something different, that they were going to put it into active status. I go to the gym because we've got a show at noon today, trying to relieve some stress, and suddenly an email pops up in my inbox from the Chester County DA, and I'm welcoming in Gavin Fish here, who's been really following this case from the get-go, his YouTube channel, Gavin Fish. And Gavin, I'm going to get your comments in a minute. We'll discuss this, but it was just devastating to read this. And I'm going to read the first couple lines, and then we'll get Gavin's take on this. But it is literally titled News Release Update to the Ellen Greenberg Investigation. And it reads, the Chester County District Attorney's Office announces an update in the investigation related to the death of Ellen Greenberg. As discussed below, the office is currently unable to move forward with criminal charges and is placing the investigation into an inactive status. Now, I'm a parent. Gavin's a parent. I've got 3 kids. This has been going on since 2011, January 2011. So this January, it will be 14 years that the Greenbergs have been trying to get this case just investigated. And now another slap in the face, this time by the Chester County DA. As you'll recall, the now governor, Josh Shapiro, who is almost a vice presidential candidate, he was the attorney general back in 2018 and pretty much turned a blind eye. And now it appears it is happening again, turning a blind eye to justice. It's making me ill. Gavin Fish, thank you for jumping on. I know it's very last minute. Your
Yeah.
reaction to this.
I was feeling the same way that you were as I began reading you turn my volume down as I began reading the press release. However, if you get to the very last page, it says there's no statute of limitations for criminal homicide in Pennsylvania, and because investigations can take new directions, we are not closing the case. That is the very first time that any investigative agency officially anywhere in the Commonwealth has called Ellen Greenberg's death a homicide. So I'm actually pretty chuffed, man. I'm Chocho over here. They're probably correct. I mean, obviously I haven't seen the whole file. They're probably correct that they can't press charges because the Philadelphia police did such a horrible job investigating the crime. The evidence gathering didn't happen until the place was cleaned up. Chester County's probably going, this is definitely a homicide, but I can't prosecute it. But here's what's going on, Joel, and you know this as well as I do. Ellen Greenberg's parents are fighting this in court on two different levels, right? And the second level, they are alleging a conspiracy to cover up the murder of their daughter. And I think what Chester County is saying here is, please keep going on your lawsuits and get as much information as you can, bring it back to us, and maybe we can investigate later. That's how I'm reading it.
All right. Well, that's excellent. So I'm actually glad to get your perspective on that because, I read that and listen, you're going to have a visceral reaction. And I was, devastated to see it. But you bring up some good points and I want to read through this. I don't know why my lighting is so bad at the moment. That's what I'm trying to figure out. But let me just kind of read through this and then I'll stop and Gavin and I will kind of break it down. It follows after they say they're going to put it into an inactive status. It follows and says the details of the investigation into the cause of Ellen Greenberg's death, which had been widely reported, are briefly summarized here. This is the full press release you're looking at, but we're breaking it down here a little bit. On January 26, it reads 2011. Again, this is going to be 14 years this January. Miss Greenberg, then 27 years old, was found dead by her fiance in the kitchen of her residence at 5601 Flat Rock Road, apartment 603 in Philadelphia. It's a suburb called Manayunk, still within the Philadelphia district. The Philadelphia Police Department investigated the case in coordination with the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. I'm going to hold it right there. Gavin, did they really, I'm going to go try to tweak the lightest for a second, so don't pay attention to me, but did they really put an effort forward? They say they investigated the case in coordination with the Philadelphia DA's office. Can you give us your take on the veracity of that line?
Well, no, I don't think that they investigated the case. They went in there and they said Ellen Greenberg took her own life. There are pictures from the crime scene of the medical examiners investigating, lifting Ellen's shirt and pointing at different stab wounds and basically saying this she did it to herself. And so they got her body, they took her to the morgue for an autopsy. They released the crime scene back to the apartment complex. And then they left. They left late that night, but they did not do any major investigation. It wasn't until 2 days later when the ME said, hey, she was stabbed 10 times in the back of her head and neck. This is a homicide. Did they go back? But in the meantime, the place had been professionally cleaned by a crime scene cleanup company that the police department themselves had referred over to the apartment building. So no, did the Philadelphia Police Department investigate the case in coordination with the district attorney's office? No, I don't think that's a fair statement at all.
Yeah, and then there was actually some recent media just kind of rehashing some of what we knew. But Gavin, just take us back, and then I'm going to continue with this press release. But just take us back to that, that evening when James Schwartzman and Sam's cousin come in there, what went down there?
So the timeline of events is Sam Goldberg says that he goes down. They live on the 6th floor of this apartment building. It's in a nice area of Philadelphia. He says that he goes down to the 1st floor to go work out, and sure enough, there is surveillance footage or security footage that shows him entering and exiting the gym. He says when he gets back up, the door is locked from the inside with a swing bar lock, like a hotel lock. He says he can't get in. After a whole bunch of time, like 45 minutes outside, texting and calling and trying to get her attention, he says, he breaks down the door, sees her, and immediately calls 911. But that really, the evidence that the Greenbergs have compiled in their, quest for justice for their daughter shows that that's not what happened. He called his cousin, Kamian Schwartzman. He talked to his uncle, James Schwartzman. Both Kamian and James are attorneys. The elder Schwartzman, Uncle Jimmy, sits on the board of SEPTA. He, he's a high power attorney. He's a former U.S. assistant attorney. He sits on like the board of judicial discipline. He's a person who should be very familiar with judicial ethics. It's not until he talks with them that he contacts 911. And I know that you've played it on your channel. I've certainly played it on my channel. The 911 call is completely unbelievable. Now, I think that I saw Kamian arriving at the apartment before EMS. They say that wasn't him, but I think it was.
Really?
I think so. I mean, it looks like him. But in a letter that I got from his attorney, they said that is not Kamian. It's ridiculous. It doesn't even look anything like him. But anyway, Sam apparently breaks down the door. He calls 911. 911 arrives, and Ellen has a knife in her chest. Now, later on that night,
we know that Kamian. Gavin, how deep was that knife in there?
It was a Cutco 1721. Everybody describes it as a 10-inch knife, and it is 10 inches from tip to the tang, right, all the way to the very end of the handle. But yeah, it was in there like 5 inches. So it was deeply embedded in her chest. The only thing that was out was the handle.
That's unreal, and he doesn't notice it, which is just unreal.
Right.
I apologize. I'm just distracted because something is going on in the studio here. But let's go to this question here from Sunshine. I am confused, Gavin. I thought this was going to go to the state Supreme Court. Is it not anymore? I have seen this case on News Nation, so I thought it was finally getting some attention. You want to address that, Gavin?
Yeah, there's a good reason for that confusion, and the reason is there are 3 different cases happening here, Sunshine. If you go to my website, gavinfish.com, go to my blog, I detail it out. You can see it. But I consider this a 3-front war. Okay. The first front on this, in this war is the first lawsuit that Josh and Sandy filed, which was to seek mandamus, to tell the medical examiner's office, you must change the cause and manner of death here. And that one got appealed by the medical examiner's office, the city of Philadelphia, and the Greenbergs lost that appeal. But the Supreme Court took that question up. They lost the appeal on standing. So the Supreme Court is set to hear, they've already gotten their written briefs. Oral arguments happen a month from tomorrow. It's December 9th. So that's moving forward. The second thing that they're doing, they've got a second case, a second lawsuit where they are alleging that the city of Philadelphia and several police officers, members of the DA's office, members of the medical examiner's office, have conspired to cover up Ellen Greenberg's murder. That one is going forward in court right now, and we're just waiting for a ruling on whether or not there will be summary judgment in this case. So that's the second thing. The third thing is what we're talking about today, and that is this. When when Larry Krasner was elected the district attorney of Philadelphia, he had been the Greenberg's attorney. So they had been with Mr. Krasner in private practice. They've been asking the Philly DA's office to investigate the case as a murder. You've talked to Guy DeAndrea on this channel, on your channel. We've been on a couple times together, right?
Yep.
Guy was in the DA's office, but as soon as Krasner was elected, because of that conflict of interest, it had to go somewhere else. And Pennsylvania law says it had to go to the AG's office. So that's where it went. Went to I almost said doctor. Sorry, Mr. Shapiro's office.
Yeah.
And Shapiro's office said,
take us back to that time. I think this is around 2018. The now governor is then attorney general. And I think it's important to point out that Josh Shapiro knows all these people, right? And he's from a similar area. Am I right about that, Gavin?
Yeah, that was something that a viewer of mine brought to my attention, that, hey, Josh Shapiro is never going to go against people that he knows. He's known them forever. And he shares so much, including where he was raised, where he went to school, with the Schwartzman and Goldberg family. And they have donated to his campaigns over the years and so forth. So it goes to his office and he goes, no, we agree with the DA's office. This is a suicide.
Yeah.
So it was only after I alleged a conflict of interest that the AG's office goes, there's not really a conflict of interest here, but it looks like one. So we're going to give it back to the Philly DA, who then had to send it over to Chester County. So we've got 3 things happening, right? We've got an investigation and 2 lawsuits. And today we're talking about that investigation.
I'm discouraged, Gavin, less so than myself. Lee wants to know here, will you be able to go to the oral arguments at the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court?
Yes, that's my plan. My plan is to be there on December 9th. It's going to be I live all the way in Western PA, close to the Ohio border. I'm going to be driving there in the morning and driving back at night.
Wow. How long a drive is that, Gavin? How long a drive?
I think it's about 7 hours.
Whoa. All right. Well, we'll definitely get Gavin's take, when he's there. COE, please put that in the planning calendar for December 9th. I think it's already in there. I'm just going to go forward. Gavin knows his case inside out, so please feel free to put the triple Q in there. I'll get the questions. I'm just going to keep reading here, though. So this is from the press release, which is right here, that was released about 10:06 this morning from the Chester County DA's office. By the way, I cannot stress this enough. Your voices are important. So you can tweet at the Chester County DA's office. Hopefully the COE can get these handles up there. Josh Shapiro is just at Josh Shapiro, I believe. He is the current governor. He has power to an authority to do stuff and take action in this case. So it continues here. After an autopsy on January, and this is important, after an autopsy on January 27, 2011, this is the day after, Miss Greenberg's death was ruled a homicide. I hope everyone heard that. So this is a day after they do an autopsy, and the medical examiner says, yeah, this is a homicide. She was killed. That initial determination was later changed to suicide by the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office. I'm going to hold it right there and have Gavin fill in the gap. So, Gavin, what went down there? It was like a 3-month period. There were some closed door meetings, super shady. Philly is notorious for corruption. I'm just so angry about this because, I'm talking to Josh and Sandy, and here they go hitting a brick wall again. But tell us what happened in the period of time that went from homicide to, I think, undetermined to then an unaliving case.
Yeah. So what happened is Marlon Osborne tells the Philly PD, this is a homicide, go back and investigate. They go back, of course, it's already been cleaned. And then the Philadelphia police go on an unprecedented media blitz to discredit the whole idea that this was a homicide. that, like, you can go back to the Philadelphia Inquirer. They full on did interviews going, no, this is not a homicide. She did this to herself. We are investigating it this way. And they did this very like public pressure campaign to change Dr. Osborne's mind. And then sometime between January and April, there was a meeting. There's no record of the meeting. The Greenbergs found out about the meeting through their lawsuit, through the discovery and the deposition process. There was a meeting that was attended by Dr. Osborne, his boss, Dr. Gulino, and Ponterio from the DA's office, and at least one or two other Philadelphia PD detectives. And after that meeting, Dr. Osborne testified that it was clear to him that he had to change the manner of death from homicide to that Ellen Greenberg did it to herself. It was, it's unprecedented. I've never heard of anything like this happening.
Yeah, I mean, and just think of what a gut punch that is. And this is 14 years ago. This case, as you heard Gavin say at the beginning, has never been investigated. This guy, Sam Goldberg, by the way, the fiance at the time, he gets remarried. He's living, as far as we know, in the greater New York City area. He's got a family now. And, you know, it is a, let's put it this way. It is a very, very, very suspicious death. There's a comment here from Sunshine. Gavin, I think the answer to this is what you talked about at the beginning. At the end of this press release, it does say that there's no statute of limitations on a homicide case. So it can still be changed to homicide, Gavin. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that is what the first lawsuit that is now at the state Supreme Court is seeking. They're seeking the court to tell the ME's office change the manner of death. And Dr. Osborne could do that today. In his deposition, he goes, the reason that I changed it to what I did, the unaliving, was because there were no footprints on the balcony, and Sam Goldberg broke down the door in the presence of a security officer or like a member of the apartment staff. Well, that turned out not to be true. And there's an affidavit from that person saying, I was never there. I wasn't there. So Dr. Osborne could just go, oh, well, that changes things. He doesn't even work for Philadelphia anymore, but he still has the power. He could just say homicide.
I didn't know that. So by the way, he moved to South Florida, not far from where I am. And I believe he was the medical examiner with the Parkland shooting, which is obviously a horrific tragedy. But I did not know that he has that sort of power to change that ruling.
He's the only one with that power without a court order.
Wow. Is there anything that we can do to get at Marlon Osborne? Is there, if he has a public email or a, I doubt he has a Twitter account.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Because listen, again, people's voices matter. I know sometimes you feel like it doesn't, but it really does. And if you look, this guy, Governor Josh Shapiro, is very likely going to run for president in 2028.
I think so.
Yeah, it's almost no doubt that he's going to run for president. And this is going to be a black eye on that. There was talk about it when they were thinking of picking him as vice president. But this is definitely a black eye. And trust me, no politician wants a suspicious death hovering over their campaign.
Especially now that another investigative agency is saying it's a homicide. That makes it worse for him.
Yeah, that's 100% amazing point. Best Nancy here. This is very kind. Got the best community. Gavin, do you have a Venmo account that can help you with gas? A few people are saying they want to help you out.
You guys are awesome. Here's what I would say. I would take that money that you would help me with gas, and I would go give it to Josh and Sandy through their GoFundMe. They've been, I mean, they've got to be coming up on 7 figures now that they've spent.
Yeah. I mean, Josh, he told me it was well over $500,000 that they've spent. But it's starting to really.
And in their deposition recently, they said 800.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, yeah, I think they're not keeping a real close eye on the funds that are being spent. Like, Yeah, thank you so much. Your community is amazing, and thank you for offering that. Go to my website, gavinfish.com, go to Ellen's case page, and there's a link to the GoFundMe. Give it to Josh and Sandy.
Yeah, that's super sweet of you, Gavin. And COE, make sure we get that link. We're seeing a picture now. This is obviously a rendering of the stab wound. So if you think that is unaliving, there's a huge gash on the top of her head too, by the way. That's what's pixelated there. But Gavin, just one more time, explain this door lock, because now we're seeing a photo of it, so it's easier to understand it. And we're still going through this press release, so I'm going to continue to take us through this one at a time. Before we get there, Nicole is a friend of the show in here. Why wouldn't they want to investigate to do due diligence, Gavin Fish?
Yeah, I honestly think, and I've talked to Guy DeAndre about this, I don't think that there was anything nefarious going on at the beginning. I think the police, it was in the middle of a nor'easter. They go into a scene, and I think they honestly thought, this is a suicide because, look, she stabbed herself in the heart. And then they're like, we can go back to our families now. I think that's what they did. But as soon as they found out it was a homicide, they endeavored to cover it up. Just the terrible work that they did. The EMS personnel, the fire department, they all say, yeah, this was obviously a homicide. And the police never called us. They normally call us for our reports and stuff like that. Like the police did a horrible, horrible job here. And I think that they've just been endeavoring to cover it up for the last almost 14 years.
Absolutely crazy. By the way, Steve Cohen, Meave Moen, the world's best booking producer, just texted me that he has reached out to Marlon Osborne, the doctor, the medical examiner, and he's going to reach out to him. It's interesting how people can run from cameras when this is all going on. By the way, I've said this before, and I know there's some stuff being done behind the scenes I'm not really at liberty to talk about, but if New York City, where I once reported, was a responsible media mecca still of local news, they would try to get Sam Goldberg to comment on this. As far as I know, they really haven't done that. Philadelphia stations should be doing the same thing. If I had the resources, I might actually just go up there and try to do it myself. So that's another possibility. But as far as you know, Gavin, have we heard from Sam Goldberg during this 14-year period?
No, not really. I mean, I know that he was in touch with Josh and Sandy in the first couple of years, kind of when they didn't really know the extent of how bad it was. They were still in touch with him. I don't think they've been in touch with him for probably a dozen years at this point. I know that people have reached out, and they're referred to the same lawyer who threatened me with defamation. So, they just refer us over to his counsel.
Yeah, that's what lawyers do. By the way, Gavin, if you need it, we've got about 500 best guests, and a good chunk of them are high-profile criminal defense attorneys. So
Nice.
lawyers could try to scare you, but it is a First Amendment right of ours to be discussing this. I'm gonna let's go to this comment, and I'm gonna pull back up the door lock, and I'm gonna keep going through this press release. By the way, at noon today, right after this, I'm doing a live with Detective Phil Waters and retired FBI agent out of Philadelphia, Scott Duffy, who might make a comment or two about this as well. But we're discussing a wild case out of Utah where a man was lured from California, the estranged husband of a woman, and then her mother, her brother, and she were all in on the murder. And what's fascinating, but what's even more fascinating is our original true crime story is Dan Markel, the FSU law professor who was gunned down in a murder for hire plot. And what were these people all Googling? They were Googling Dan Markel. They were Googling Donna Adelson, all sorts of things related to that case.
Trying to learn from their bad mistakes, huh?
Yeah, they were trying to learn. Yeah, exactly. They were trying to not make the same mistakes as Charlie, who's now convicted for life, and Donna Adelson, whose trial has been continued, but will undoubtedly go on trial to face a first-degree murder charge. But Ashley Rose here. If this happened now with advancements in technology, Gavin, in the last 14 years, do you think it's Sam, not Adam, but would he get away with it? I'm thinking about smart Apple Watches, step counts, CCTV cameras. Great question. I mean, the digital forensics is tough to get away from, isn't it, Gavin?
Yeah. And I've covered a couple of local cases in my day job where I've sat through a couple of trials where they were able to prove, that somebody was exerting themselves quite a lot in the murder window, and that is very compelling to juries to go, oh, he's saying that he was just relaxing with his kids, but actually he was going up 3 flights of stairs, and he was, that sort of stuff. Yeah, that if it happened now, I think it would be pretty easy to prove that this was a murder. But even 14 years ago, I think it would have been easy to prove had they done their job. They never tested DNA. They never like tested different blood, droplets where they just.
I mean, let's be honest. They just didn't investigate, right? I mean, they just totally dropped. And on top of that, they brought in a cleaning service, a literal professional cleaning service. And this guy, James Schwartzman, and the cousin, Camion, they left with laptops and other digital equipment, right? I mean, in what world does that happen?
Yeah, man, I'd completely forgotten about that, but that was like a main thing. The police had to go get Ellen's laptops and her phone 2 days later because they went into the apartment and took them.
Yeah. Like, I mean, think about this. This is a powerful judge that's donating to political campaigns, and these are political positions, the DA, they're elected positions, and they allow these people to come over and literally the place is cleaned, and they take digital forensic evidence. They don't even give it back for a few days. I mean, it's beyond. I've never heard of this, and I've covered a lot of stories in my life. There's a lot of injustices, but this has got to be at the very top of the list. Jennifer Levy sharing our sentiments. I am livid and heartbroken by this news. I literally restarted my computer because I hoped I misread the title of the stream the first time. Unfortunately, you did not. Gavin has a little more optimistic take, which we'll get back to. But I wanted Gavin, just explain this one more time here because this is important. This is the kind of latch door lock that was on. This is the actual lock, I believe.
That is the crime scene photo. Yeah,
that is the crime scene. So just explain it one more time, Gavin, so people get it.
So I think that this apartment building was once a hotel or something. Anyway, they all have these hotel style locking mechanisms on the inside. They're called bar locks. So what Sam Goldberg claimed was he came back from the gym and he tried to open the door. He had a key to the door, but the bar lock was engaged from the inside, and so he couldn't get in. Then he claims on 911 that he broke down the door. He broke it open, right? But you can see in that photo that the swing side of that bar lock is not damaged at all, and the bar side of the bar lock is not disengaged from the door. It would not have let him open that way, and I tested it. Like I bought a swing lock, I installed it on a door, I broke open the door. This is not what it looks like. And I think if I did it 100 times, it would never look like that. So I think this is one of those pieces of evidence that shows that Sam Goldberg lied in his testimony to police and on 911.
So Gavin, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but what do you think happened with this door? How did he get in? How did he get out? Opened it?
Yeah, I mean, there were people on the outside who saw that the door was locked, and if I'm just speculating here, and this is only my opinion, I think that he probably needed people to see that it was locked from the inside. He wanted people in the hallway, and that's why it took him 45 minutes. He waited for people to look. Again, my opinion, speculating here. But I don't think that there was ever a time when he couldn't get in the door. And either that is because there was somebody else helping him, or he had some way to release the mechanism, he could get in, because he could not have gotten in at this damage. So it
100%.
looks to me like that was just a staging, and that goes along with the rest of the scene. You know, other forensic experts have said in sworn affidavits that the scene was staged. Ellen Greenberg had a pristine white bath towel in her left hand. One of
Also,
the blood experts said that there was like wiping of the blood and stuff like that. So
also, she had blood trickling down this way, but she was positioned in an upright position.
correct.
So the physics
She'd been
don't even
repositioned. Yeah.
She's I mean, I don't know what it is. By the way, this story, whenever we do it, doesn't seem to get the traction, and which I could care less about. It's just interesting because to me, this is such a fascinating case, such a huge injustice, criminally speaking here, and I just wish that more people would kind of voice their concerns about this. But there is some stuff going on behind the scenes, and I think there's going to be a brighter spotlight shown on this at some point. From Rosemary Romero outside Toronto, Canada, to Gavin, what happens if the Supreme Court shuts down Ellen Greenberg's investigation? It's not really what they're discussing. It's kind of explain what the Supreme Court is going to do during these oral arguments on December 9th, and what could come of it.
Yeah. The Supreme Court is not acknowledging or not acknowledging that Ellen was murdered. That's not the question. The Supreme Court is considering, and this is the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court, they're considering whether or not Josh and Sandy Greenberg have standing to bring a lawsuit seeking mandamus, which is a legal mechanism for a court to enforce a government agency into action. So it's actually pretty complex to wrap your head around it. And that's why we're all so confused about it. It's a pretty difficult to understand legal doctrine. But the state Supreme Court, the whole question is, do Josh and Sandy have the standing to bring their lawsuit against the medical examiner's office? Yes or no? Has nothing to do with whether or not they think that she was murdered.
Yeah, which is great. So now they even have their hands tied about whether or not they can sue this person. So, because they've got this immunity, and there's a good chance that they're going to be denied, right? I mean, Gavin, this is not like a, this is not,
it's not a guaranteed thing.
Yeah, that's what I was that's the word I was looking for. By the way,
go ahead.
Steve Cohen, Meave Moen texting me. He's just spoke to Tom Brennan. He's a private investigator, former Pennsylvania state police officer who's been doing this, investigating this on behalf of the Greenbergs. Super nice guy and very, very shrewd when it comes to criminal investigations. And he says he was expecting this, and he told as much to Sandy and Josh yesterday, that he was expecting them to put it into inactive status. That's interesting. What do you make of that, Gavin?
Well, yeah, I think Tom's smarter than the rest of us. I was really maybe more experienced than the rest of us too. He's been at it for so long. I really thought that the political pressure would come down on DA Borena Sarobe and make him say this was a suicide. I really think that's what I expected.
He's the Chester County DA, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. When this was referred over to Chester County, it was a different DA. And then Borena Sarobe was elected later. Yeah.
He's very new. So, I mean, if I'm reading you correctly, you're seeing this glass half full, because it's obviously better than them coming out and reaffirming the unaliving. Right. So at least they didn't do that, I guess. Wow, Gavin's a real optimist. Sam Goldberg,
this is terrific news. I am so sorry, everybody. Like this is the very first time. So the police have said it was she did it to herself. The Emmy said she did it to herself. The Philly DA, the AG, over the course of 14 years, 4 investigative agencies have said she did it to herself. And now finally, at the end of 2024, the Chester County DA after it was forced over into their office. They didn't want this, right? They look at it and say, we can't prosecute this, but this is a homicide. That's good news.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. I really did not look at it through that lens, but I'm glad that Gavin is here, which is why we asked him to be here. And as you just heard, this is the first time one of these offices in the Commonwealth of PA is at least intimating that they could go back and look at it as a potential homicide. I'm going to keep going with this press release. That's why we're here today. The Chester County DA released some information basically saying that they're putting Ellen's case into inactive status. We're talking just now about how they changed their determination from homicide to unaliving. And then it says, and this is where Josh Shapiro comes in. In 2018, the investigation was turned over to the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office, the OAG, for review. That is Josh Shapiro. Mm-hmm. In order to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest, in August of 2022, the investigation was turned over to the Chester County detectives. This is another way of saying that the can was kicked down the road. But Gavin, to you, what was the specific conflict of interest that they were citing back in 2018? Was it that Josh knew these people? What was it?
Yeah, I got I got a tip through my website. It was anonymous that said, hey, Josh Shapiro knows the Schwartzmans. He went to school with one of their daughters. He's friends with these guys. And I went, huh, well, that's interesting. So I ended up, I think I've shown you this before. Give me just a second.
Hang tight, everybody. We're about to get an exhibit. I'm feeling better now that Gavin has kind of calmed me down a little bit. Walked me off. Yeah, there you go.
I went to eBay and I bought the yearbook of the school that Josh Shapiro went to. And sure enough, like, I won't be able to find it super easily here, but sure enough, like, Josh Shapiro went to school with Kimberly Schwartzman, Judge Schwartzman's daughter. And they're friends.
What's her name?
Twitter.
Her name is Kimby?
She goes by Kimby. Her name is Kimberly.
Yeah. All right. So hang on one sec, because a lot of people are not that familiar. So what Gavin is saying, you got the governor now, then he was the attorney general, and he is good friends with Sam Goldberg's uncle, with the daughter. The daughter.
He's the same age as, well, I think he's like a year or two younger than Kimberly, but they're peers.
Yeah. They're good friends. And now you
know on Twitter, he talks about, his friends, Kimberly and Wayne Kimmel. Her name is Kimberly Kimmel now, and talks about them being friends. Wow. And and then, just like, you don't even have to look very deep to see the Kimmels and the Schwartzmans giving to Josh Shapiro's campaigns. And so I brought that up, and the media here in Pennsylvania started asking the Attorney General's office, is this true? And then he went, there's an appearance of conflict of interest here. We're going to go ahead and get rid of this case.
From Lee again, am I remembering correctly that the lawyer uncle, this is James Schwartzman, pushed the landlord to hire the cleanup people? How did the professional cleaning service get there?
Sort of. James Schwartzman apparently called the apartment complex and said, we need to get a suit for Sam for the funeral. Remember that Ellen and her family, they're all of the Jewish faith and heritage. The funeral was happening quickly. And so he asked to get permission to go inside the apartment to get Sam a suit for the funeral.
Yeah. But real quick, according to Jewish law, you're supposed to be buried within 24 to 48 hours. Go ahead, Gavin.
So they're moving quickly, right? So the property manager calls the police and says, hey, can I let them in? And by the way, it's still a mess in there. And the police said, yeah, the crime scene has been released. Here is the number for a crime scene cleanup company. The manager calls back to Schwartzman. Schwartzman offers to pay for it, is my understanding. It gets cleaned up like that. And that afternoon, they're in there getting Sam a suit. But while they're in there getting Sam a suit, they take her phone, her work laptop, her personal laptop.
Unreal.
Yeah.
By the way, the person to really speak to is not even Sam Goldberg. It's his wife. I'd be fascinated because the old saying, the old colloquialism, a leopard does not change its spots. I'd be fascinated to see what's going on there. How about this? As we continue to go through this press release and taking some questions, Ellen's body temperature was so low for first responders, which would kind of hint at the fact that this was maybe done even earlier than suggested by the fiance. What do we know about this, Gavin?
I don't remember the specifics on that, but what I do know is that they didn't do any sort of liver temp testing, internal body temperature testing. They didn't do any of the normal things. They look at rigor mortis, liver mortis, and algor mortis to determine time of death. The medical examiner's investigator did say that rigor had started to set in. But yeah, they didn't do any of the stuff needed to figure out the time of death. And I'm sure that was really frustrating. I know it was for Guy DeAndrea when he was looking at the case.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was very frustrating for the detectives over in Chester County as well.
And again, Guy DeAndrea at the time was a homicide prosecutor in the Philadelphia DA's office.
Right.
I agree with Mel Mack. Sorry, the story is terrible. Justice for Ellen. It's unreal. So continuing on with this press release that was released by the Chester County DA, which I was having a meltdown about, but Gavin is again seeing the positive side to it. So Governor Josh Shapiros says, yeah, I can't look at this as a conflict of interest, tosses it to Chester County. So after receiving the case, Chester County investigators, this is in 2022, worked to determine whether sufficient evidence existed to reopen the investigation. Detectives first conducted a thorough review of the PPD and OAG, that's the Philadelphia Police Department, and the Office of the Attorney General investigations. They then pursued additional investigative steps, including but not limited to conducting new interviews and consulting with an independent forensic expert. After this review, the investigation team determined that based on the current state of the evidence, I think it's right here, based on the current state of the evidence, we cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a crime was committed. Maybe because you guys waited 14 years to start to look at this instead of investigating it. Listen, I mean, Gavin, this just irritates me beyond any measure because, again, they're politicians and they're slick. And look, and I don't want to say that you're falling for it because I don't think you are, but in a way, it's a word salad saying, look, we're blowing this off for now. I know that you have the hope in all of this, but are you surprised that are you surprised that this sort of new investigation, and we really don't know how in-depth it was, didn't like reap any fruit by the Chester County DA?
Well, when I talked to Josh and Sandy about this, they described, so what happened is Josh and Sandy and their lawyer, Joe Pedraza, who I believe has also been here on the program, they had a meeting with the Chester County DA yesterday. And in that meeting, it was a Zoom meeting, because Josh and Sandy are living in Florida now. They presented, this is what I understand, the DA presented what they had done and then told them we're going to keep it an open case, but it's going to be inactive. And the way they described it to me was that it's Josh said, we thank them for their efforts. We appreciate their desire to have a meeting with us before they release their findings. And from the meeting we had, the findings were very superficial. So they felt like they really didn't dig into this case. So yeah, I mean, I am finding the silver lining in this. They're calling it a criminal homicide.
Yeah.
They're just saying, but we can't prove it.
Yeah. Good. I mean, I'm glad to hear you say that. And this is we're going to continue reading here. I think let me just find out. Yeah, if you see here on the third line, this is the very end of this press release today. This standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt makes the criminal investigation different than other legal cases or issues that surround Miss Greenberg's death. Because we cannot meet our burden of proof with the information and evidence presently available, we place presently available. We place this investigation in an inactive status, and this is the part that Gavin really likes. There is no statute of limitations for criminal homicide in Pennsylvania. And because investigations can take new directions, we are not closing the case. Another positive, I guess. Therefore, we will not be answering any questions about this matter, which is why they didn't have an actual press conference. And this is, you see, approved for release by Christopher Debarania Sarobi, if I'm pronouncing that right. He is a DA in Chester County, new DA. So, yeah, I mean, the last, 10 lines, it does give you some hope.
Here's the thing that gives me hope.
Yeah.
He goes, reasonable doubt is a different standard of proof than other legal cases that surround Ellen's death, right? What are other standards of proof that are out there in the law? Well, if there was a wrongful death lawsuit brought against somebody by Josh and Sandy, they don't have to prove beyond reasonable doubt. They have to prove to the standard of preponderance of the evidence, right? So 51% that it's more likely that somebody killed Ellen than she did it to herself. That's the only burden that they have to do. And so if Josh and Sandy get to that point, and what I wonder is they have not filed a wrongful death suit in this case at all, because they've been fighting this. They've been wanting to call it a homicide. What I'm wondering, and I'm going to ask Joe Pedraza this, I'm wondering if this letter is enough for them to say, hey, these investigators think this is a criminal homicide. Mm-hmm. We've got enough now. We're going to bring a wrongful death suit. I wonder. I don't know, but they have a much lower burden of proof.
That's what I was going to say. Much lower burden of proof, and they can depose Sam Goldberg, and they can depose James Schwartzman and Kamian Schwartzman. So all these people can be deposed and have to swear under oath, and that's where it gets really interesting. Listen, it hasn't been me. It is much more Gavin, and there's other people that have really been pushing for justice for Ellen. We came on relatively late compared to the others. Philadelphia Inquirer has been doing amazing work on it as well. But Ida Shaw, a couple questions, and then I got to get ready for the noon show. No rest for the weary here. But why place it on an inactive status? Why not just keep investigating? What do you think, Gavin? I mean,
I don't know.
It might be just because resources are fairly limited, so maybe they have to kind of legally or by the office mandate have to do that. Why would Josh Shapiro from Rosemary again take a risk by covering up this crime? Couldn't he lose his job or go to jail for covering up the crime? Gavin, you want to take that one?
He has absolute high immunity as the Attorney General. Mm-hmm. He has there's nothing that could have been done.
Politicians have immunity. We've seen that play out in presidential.
The Attorney General has absolute high immunity. There's nothing that can be done.
Wow. I'm just looking to see if there's any other comments here that are striking me before we say goodbye to Gavin. But Gavin, I mean, let's sum it up here. The Chester County DA, who's now in charge of this investigation or lack thereof, basically came out and said that they're putting Ellen Greenberg, the young elementary school teacher, 27 years old at the time, teaching, comes home on a snowy evening. All accounts are that everything is fine. You don't make a fruit salad. If you're thinking of unaliving yourself, you don't go and fill up a car with gasoline. You saw that door lock we just showed you. According to the fiance, he busted in. Doesn't look like that's the case when you look at this. Someone is saying, by the way, so someone just asked, Gavin, how's there a reasonable doubt with so many stab wounds? What would your answer? I know you're not a lawyer, but what would be your answer to that? Shout out to Marianne.
Yeah, I don't think that I think it's beyond reasonable doubt that she was killed. I think what they're talking about is if there is a defendant that they have to prove that this defendant did that beyond a reasonable doubt. That is a very high burden. In this case, there's just so much time has passed and the investigation was so poorly done.
Mm.
I think that's where they are.
Yeah. I'm gonna give Gavin a final thought in a second. Look at my mom jumping in here. She's got the mod wrench. How are the civil suits going? Carm, you must have been joining late. Gavin was just talking about that, but they might have enough to file a wrongful death suit now, which would again allow them to depose Sam Goldberg, James Schwartzman, Kamian Schwartzman, and others under oath. So that's a bit of good news there. And I was banging my head against the wall when I saw this at the gym. I literally ran out, came here to get on air and do this. You guys need to follow Gavin Fish. You see, he does things like goes out and buys old Josh Shapiro yearbooks, which is what a true investigative reporter does. I got to be honest, I would be too lazy to do that, but I'm impressed. Gavin, your final thoughts. Again, you're seeing this more glass half full than glass half empty. Tell us why and your final thoughts.
Yeah, I would just say Josh and Sandy for the last almost 14 years have been hitting brick wall after brick wall after brick wall. They've had more bad news in the last 14 years than I think I'll ever have in my entire lifetime seeking justice for this case. And in talking to them, they go into things without high expectations one way or the other. I'm really impressed by just how they prepare themselves on this. If I were in their shoes, I would be very happy with this. I mean, this could have come back as just another brick wall, but it looks like while there might be a wall that Mr. Barena Sarobe built here, he probably built it out of styrofoam, not brick. So, and Joel, just to plug myself just a little bit, tonight at 7:30 over on my channel, I'll be tearing into this a little bit in more detail.
Yeah, please subscribe to Gavin's channel. Check out his show at 7:30. I'm going to check it out. Gavin, goes layers deep into this stuff, whereas I am a former reporter just asking a lot of questions. But Gavin really knows the inside scoop and the layered inside scoop. The name of Gavin's channel, Gavin, it's just Gavin Fish, correct?
Yep, just Gavin Fish. You'll find me easily. And Joel, I have to say, you were saying earlier, you don't get as many views on this case as other cases, and it's sad because Ellen, I mean, this is one of the just most egregious miscarriages of justice, but I'm glad you keep showing it. I'm glad you keep covering it. You're doing a really good job, and you've had some great guests on. I really hope that more and more people will open their eyes to this corruption.
Really well said. We're going to leave it on that note. And I appreciate you saying that. It just kind of gave me the chills because I couldn't give a crap about the clicks other than I want people to be aware of this. I'm not going to not do this because you're not getting good numbers on this. And I've said this many times before. It's all news outlets. You're trying to get viewers. You're not doing it to not get viewers. So we want to get viewers. But the fact that this is not getting the viewership that I would expect it to get is never going to be a deterrent for me to not continue going forward with this story. And they're going to get justice one day. I can guarantee you that. You can't run forever. So certain people tonight, if I was them, I'd be a little more worried than I was maybe last night. Yeah. So the final comment. Thank you, Gavin. I am now subscribed to your channel.
Thank you, Cheryl.
And another one here, subscribe with Gavin Fish. So Gavin, thank you so much,
you,
man. I know
Thanks,
you're going to stay on top of it. We're going to stay on top of it. Love you, America. Love you, Philly. Love you, Western PA, where Gavin is. Our thoughts are with Josh and Sandy, and of course, justice for Ellen Greenberg. It is coming.